Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Orgasmica, the podcast where we talk all about sexuality, sensuality, and all things healing. And today I have a beautiful, healing, amazing woman in the house. I am so excited. I want to read her bio because it's just this most beautiful thing. Rocío Navarro is a somatic water healer, ceremonialist, did I say that right? Integration rite and sociologist with 20 years of experience in healing arts. Born to migrant parents from Michoacán, Mexico, and raised in LA, Rocío's practice is rooted in indigenous-based healing, epigenetics, sound healing, meditation, and holistic wellness. Rocío specializes in personal transformation, ancestral healing, grief work, sexual trauma, and womb healing. Her unique approaches uses water as a catalyst of healing and transformation, often incorporates natural bodies of water to enhance the healing potential of the land. Yes, welcome, Rocío. What a beautiful! I didn't know you were raised in LA.
I was raised in LA.
Oh my goodness, I had no idea. I, of course, been following you for a long time, and I thought you were raised in Mexico because you were like so in touch with your roots in that kind of a sense. It's like something that your parents, because you also are fully bilingual, and not necessarily people that were born here with migrant parents speak full language or are very in touch with the roots, you know, of that. So is that something that your parents consciously did? Is that something that you looked after? How was that connection with, you know, the land where your family is from?
Yeah, that's a great question. One, I think the blessing of being born in LA, right? There's a connection to Mexican culture, Latino culture in general. And we also see that it takes half a generation sometimes to lose a language, right? So a lot of us that grew up here don't necessarily always speak or retain the language. So in some ways I was blessed that my dad didn't and my mom didn't let us speak English in the household. And that was one of the things that my dad was like really diligent about, like holding that tradition. And even though in high school I lost Spanish, so I had a lot of trouble communicating with my parents during that time. I remember there was a couple years where it was just a couple words that I could get out. Yeah. But growing up, I think the other blessing was that we were always connected back home. So every year when my parents could, I mean, they were working class immigrants here in Los Angeles. Somehow my dad managed to take us back home and to connect us to the roots almost every other year. So that was really what...
To Michoacán?
Yeah. So on the summers, if we had an opportunity for like a week or two whenever he had a vacation, nos íbamos, you know? And so it was that imprint, I think, really shaped my connection to my home place.
That's beautiful. And how do you find water? I want to talk about that because I am so deeply connected to water, like especially ocean or natural bodies of water. But the ocean and I have a love affair. We have a sexual love affair also. It is very sexual. The ocean is very sexual to me. And so it's just the most amazing healing to me, like be able to do ocean and water. And where did you find your love for water? When did that start? And when did the healing start?
Yeah, so in 2011, I was dean of a high school. I studied sociology, so that's my background. And that job put me to the test to really ask myself existential questions. I
would say that anybody that is a teacher... I was like, that is one of the hardest works ever. I cannot even imagine even a dean, even so more so. Like that's, yes.
So I remember at that point, it was a turning point in my life, and I realized in that moment that everything that I had learned, what I was doing, what I was questioning about humanity, and all those things, like there weren't answers, and so I was asking bigger questions, and so that, you know, part of that experience was that I ended up having an anxiety, nervous kind of breakdown. My nervous system, out of the stress, put me on a lockdown essentially, where I couldn't walk for a couple days, and that really opened up the gateway for me to say, I know there's more. What does that look like? Yeah, and there was a dream that I woke up to during that time that said you have to pick up and go. Like it was a very directive dream that viscerally like moved everything in my body and my cells.
Yeah.
And at that time, there was a friend that was doing a women's retreat in the Yucatan, and it was to visit all the sacred feminine sites. So I said, I'm going to buy a one-way ticket. I'm going to go with them, and it feels like a start of something, and I'm just going to go, and I'm going to follow the path. And I did that. And without knowing, I followed the Mayan route. Without knowing that I was following the Mayan route, ended up in Guatemala, in El Agua Titlan.
Yeah.
And I ended up studying at a metaphysics school there, where I stayed 9 months. And that water, I would say, there really catapulted my whole journey. And that's where I did my first big bout of silence. I was in silence for 50 days and preparing for it. And that's really where the messages, the call towards the work with the water became more visceral. But at the time, even the images that I was getting was like, I would see myself birthing people in water. And I was already connected to a lot of midwives and was doing some birth work at that time. So I said, my path feels clear. I'm going to go into midwifery. Little did I know that 9 months after coming out of my big bout of silence, I discovered the path with water in the way that I'm doing it, well, somewhat doing it now. I did my first training. Yeah. And once I did that, I realized that I was just getting premonitions through this previous experience that would be a doorway that I needed to focus
on. Birthing, yes. Right? So how would you explain what you do?
It's so I would say that the invitation with the work that I do is using water as a metaphor and as a teaching for life, because we come from it, and it's also the last element that leaves us when we take our last breath. And specifically, the work that I do with water somatically is taking people in body temperature water, where our nervous systems can reconnect to, I would say, innocence, primordial connection, a regressive state back to the womb, where we first were held. So that work, being able to take people in that amniotic fluid of life and teaching them how to surrender and how to reconnect to themselves has been one of the most transformative and healing experiences for me and for people that come across it.
That's beautiful. It's this, seeing from all your videos, and I cannot wait to experience. I have a lot of my friends that have experienced your healing in that way, and it is like this rebirthing, the connection of like rebirthing into and remembering things, right? Like when you are like under the water, your body, and because you're being held by the water and by you and by the energy, and you do it one-on-one, but you do also groups. And so I'm guessing like also the groups are like holding that space as well, and then our bodies can fully relax into a space where we remember things that we might not remember in our consciousness. I do remember several of my friends had that experience with it as well.
Yeah, I mean, water's that element that holds memory.
Yes. In all its forms, it starts holding memory, and it's like so beautiful.
Or intention, and it transforms, and it that's why I always say, like, in some ways, water is such a neutral element, and it's a non-judgmental element, because it morphs to everything around it. Yeah. And there's so much studies, there's so many people doing so much work right now that are signaling to this, visceral reflection that the water does. Yeah. That it not only, when you tune into it, you can remember and have access to that information or that memory or that imprint, but you also have the ability to reprogram.
In the water. Wow.
Because water, again, is receiving energy.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. Wow, I didn't know about those studies. That is a beautiful thing. I mean, I know myself with water, there is an element of letting go, and specifically ocean I am so drawn to, because I feel its tenderness and its wildness all at the same time. And it just makes me feel connected to myself in that way. And it also makes me feel part of and small. You know, it's like I'm part of it, and I'm also like, when I see the bigness of the ocean, I'm like, I'm so small, and like all the life that it's around, and it's like, so it makes me so many feelings and the connection of it. And I just know when I need to integrate something, I always go to the ocean. I always go and like swim in this water. It's like essential to me. And then when I started discovering Tantra, which is like the transition that what I do right now into what water means to me in the sexual way. And what the ocean means to me in a sexual way, because when I started really tuning into the tantric teachings about not only sex as a form of penetration with a person, but also like a sexual, like everything around me what had like a sexual energy to it, and the way I decide to communicate or commune with it, it's up to me. And so I started being like, oh, like what are the possibilities? And of course I first went to the ocean, or I'm just like, okay, let me see how I can do this. And the ocean was very easy for me because it has a tempo, right? It has like the flowing in and the flowing out, and so I could breathe with it as I was like inhaling and then exhaling and letting it penetrate me. And I would like get I would swim with it and like have this and not even swimming, I could like just be standing next to it and like letting the energy of like just going literally inside of me and be like and then exposing it and like doing this dance with it that it's gonna maybe sound weird to some people, but it's one of my favorite orgasms to have is with the ocean. And it's like, because it's a full body, full connection with divinity experience that I have with it, and so I always try to find beaches where I'm like by myself where I'm like, can I have a moment with me in the ocean, please? Thank you. Because it's just such a moment. And I know you and I were talking about how I want you to tell me what you experience with the sexual energy and the water and like the connection in between, and how that has either changed your perception of sexuality and how's like the water has helped you transform also your relationship with sexuality.
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's why I'm so glad to be here sharing with you. This description that you have around like, having like a sensual sexual connection to the ocean, is such a symbol to a lot of, teachings where they say, we are creators of this universe, and how do we do that? We forget, right? But that energy of like ebb and flow, of feeling in surrender, of being in that like sensual space, I, apply it to on the microcosm. I always say we come from the water, we come from the sexual fluids of our parents, right? And the imprinting there, to then gestating in the womb in the amniotic fluid of our mother. And then we take our first breath in a womb of earth. Because if you look at this planet, it's still majority water. And if you think of the air that's around us, it's just water in a different form.
Right.
So water is at play in our living experience all the time.
Yeah.
But oftentimes the beauty about water is that it's visceral, right? It connects you. It takes you back into your body in a way that it gives us maybe more access. But essentially life, whatever we're doing, we're in the creative force all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that is what I'm also attempting to remember. And I feel like the journey with water has been a piece of that process. And that spiritual development. So, for me, for a long time, and this is where I'll share my my process with my like sexual evolution and process and healing with the work with water. I come from a story of trauma, like sexual trauma and abuse, like many people have. And, you know, there's something around the disconnection. Like there's a piece of you that leaves when there has been that type of abuse. And especially that piece is connected to your autonomy and your bodily autonomy. And coming from generations of women that have experienced a lot of sexual abuse and knowing that imprint was deeply in my family system and in my cultural system, it was challenging for a long time to connect to my body and to say like, what is here? And how do I, you know, really own my sexuality, right? So for a long time, you know, I would confuse sex with love. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And sex for intimacy and connection. And those were really hard moments until, you know, there was a process where like I remember in the early stages of like when I started doing even the work with the water, like if I had an attraction towards a man, there was years where I couldn't get near someone. There was like that shutdown of my body that like it was protection. I was maybe incubating. I was going through a process of also releasing a lot of stored emotions. And I knew that at that point I was like, wait, so I have to do something about this. I can't just be locked. Yeah. And not, you know, not experience life creatively also with somebody else and open my heart. Yeah. You know, in some ways. So I started doing Tantra work. Yes. And I started working with sexological body workers. And that combination with the healing work that I was doing with water was like, water was just bringing me constantly back into my senses. Because you were, you know, as you said, and you've experienced, it's like, it's that element that just invites all of that. And that was the only place I felt safe. It was in the water. It was who I was learning to become and to be more free and to be more embodied, was doing my work in the water. That's amazing. Until I needed to shift out of that. Yes. Does it a specific type of water call to you? The ocean and hot springs. Hot springs. That's beautiful. That's amazing. And so what happened after you realized, because I think that's something also very common when we find something that really called us and we're called to also provide for other people and heal other people. And then there's always layers, right? There's layers to healing. There's so many layers to things. And then we realize, oh, amazing. I have become the health of the space of this modality, and I can help people. But then there's also keep looking at ourselves in that space of being like, oh, okay, now it's asking me, my body's asking me to do something else, to move from this space that gave me so much healing, to go to a different layer, and maybe to uncover the different layer, I need a different thing. Was that an easy transition for you? I was always seeking. So in some ways there was always a growing moment, you know, and I would take it as hard as it was sometimes. And it wasn't, you know, there's a moment I think in most people's healing journey where you're like, I have to do the work, and you get caught up just doing,
yes,
right?
Yes.
But it was very clear for me early on that it was about embodiment. And that's the teaching of the water. That it would slow me down enough. And she was that clear mirror. Yeah. Where I couldn't hide from myself. Yeah. And I have to constantly see myself and see. That's why I always say it's like the clarity of what we need is there if we intend and if we cultivate it. Yeah. And even though she was nudging me in some ways, like continue growing, continue expanding, it was about embodiment. So there was like this ebb and flow too in my life and in that journey where it was like, do the work, explore, but then take time and integrate. Yes. Let's talk about integration, because I think
there's so many healing, when people start healing, like you mentioned, we see, I mean, it's hard and it's intense, but also we see the reward of it after, and it kind of becomes like addictive in a way of like, okay, what else is there more? You know, I know so many people that go like, I don't know, 20 retreats a year. I'm like, oh, are you like, you know, and also in the plant ceremony world where, you know, like I did 20 ayahuasca year. I'm like, have you integrated any of them in any point of it all? Because it can become like this like head of like, oh yes, and what it also means and what the ego says it means, and like it comes with so many things attached, you know, healing. What does integration mean to you, and how are you able to integrate? Do you have processes of integration for yourself and for other people that you would like to share?
Yeah, I think integration is giving enough space to allow life to give you the opportunity to practice. That's the training that oftentimes we're like, well, we have these experiences, we can see the clarity of it, but it's always in the challenge that we get to apply ourselves and rewire. Yeah. And for me, it was you know, moving through not the understandings, but just like the aha moments and like the realizations, and then saying, okay, how do I integrate? Okay, let me take a pause. Let me let life come to me, and then what's my response? And if I'm still in reaction, that's still my work. If I am in response and I am responding differently, I know I just stretched that space a little bit more. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. And, you know, with my healing journey, especially with sexuality, it became, you know, in the beginning stages, you know, we all have our writing kind of inner guru that is there, that's wanting to like express our inner gnosis, right? And so I just remember there was a part of my journey around like sexual healing that I was like, oh, I think I just discovered the fourth door. And I always said that, you know, one of the doors is water, but the other one that I had discovered was sexuality and sexual healing. Yeah. And what I was discovering at that point, after doing, you know, work with, you know, somatic sexological body workers and doing a lot of that that process, and taking the time for integration, right? I came to a place in my journey where, and this is what I wanted to share with you, where my body entered this state of relief and release, and it was through squirting.
Yes.
Right?
Water.
And I remember I had, and oftentimes we don't talk about this so openly, right? But I remember that experience where I was dating someone that I felt finally pretty safe with, because that was important for me too, of course. Right? Which also, I loved what you shared the other day, last week at your event, where you know, there was a question around, you know, what do you do when, you know,
the other person is closed off and
you just said, even if it's a one night stand, keep your heart open. Nothing gets taken away once your heart is open. And I remember learning this from one tantric teacher who really also shifted my perspective on sex, and really like lightened up that light bulb to say, the power's in me. Yeah. How do I bring that you know, energy back to me, that even if I decide to connect with someone, instead of being in the fear and the protection, how do I open myself enough to just say, hey, I'm gonna love you for this moment, and I'm gonna open my heart up, and nothing gets taken away. Yes. Right? And so I remember in this process that I was in, I was with somebody, and I felt completely safe, and it was the very first time that my body, I think, in that safety, was able to say, let go. Let go. And I remember in that experience, he was just like, you know, obviously his energy really supported that in that moment, but it was really the opportunity for me to awaken to that power in me of like, what does it really look like for my body to surrender? Yes. And to my surprise, was like, how much liquid can come out of someone's body.
Yes.
And I just remember there was so much liquid that at that time had come out that continues to be part of my process.
That's
even
beautiful.
Now.
Yes.
But that level of relief and release and trust and coming back to my gnosis of my body, I knew that I had already kind of crossed the threshold.
So was that before then, that was not a part of your sexual journey?
No.
This was a new discovery into your journey. And how did you, there's so much shame involved with women's bodily anything.
Absolutely.
Body shapes, body fluids, body odors, body absolutely anything. That we have so many, things that they sell us of like, your vagina should smell like flowers and things. And I'm like, this is bullshit. No, your vagina should smell like a vagina. And it has a beautiful smell. Thank you. And if it doesn't, it's something wrong with it. But, like it's not, it shouldn't smell like chocolate or flowers. It's a different type of stuff. And so there is this, I treat some women where like they cannot feel safe enough because of what society has implemented in us of like, no, it's not womanly, to flirt, do, and that includes squirt, like releasing bodily fluids when it's part of men's everyday freaking life, and like we put it in our faces, we put it fucking everywhere, you know what I mean?
1,000%.
Put it in a mask and like it's all fine. But a women, oh my god, are you screaming? What, like it's so embarrassing to wet the sheets and like all this stuff. So any of that in that moment or after came into your consciousness, or you were able to be like, oh wow, because you were so connected to water, were you able to implement that into it and like weaving it in a sense?
Yeah, it was interesting. So I think that that experience that I first had also in some ways took me out of body, where I felt like I was on mushrooms. And it was interesting because at that point it was like I made the connection and the dots, and I was like, oh, this is the in-between state of the subliminal that we have access to in such a divine way if we can pay attention to it. And in that moment, I actually had a memory of what I maybe consider a past life. It was a glimpse, and then later in life, in my process, started putting the pieces of the puzzle together. But the fact that I was able to kind of go into that subliminal state and allow myself to just be in that full surrender and kind of be in that out-of-body cosmic state, I was like, wow, like this is possible. What is possible here? And now with my awareness around what water is and water does, then how can I now tune into this element within me to use it or to work with it and to develop a relationship to it that I can be more conscious of? And what does that even look like? And those were the questions that I was starting to ask, but I already had obviously experience with the water to know its transformative power. But the fact that I was able to feel it through a sexual experience, I was like, oh, I get it now. Why this is it can be such a powerful space when there's intention and when you like put all your energy into it. And just going back to what you were talking about, like the shame of like women's bodies and releasing, we take in so much energy. We're like the magnet, the feminine polarity is magnetic, and so it draws energy, and our wombs are those caves that takes that energy in. So releasing it is like part of the cleansing process. You felt like a release of that within that moment. Oh my God, how amazing. And I think that goes back to like cellular memory or memory imprinting that's in the body, because I was able to connect again some memories from the past in that moment of release. Wow, how beautiful that squirting is used mostly in places like pornography and things, and we rarely talk about that in a healing space, where it's like it's not just like a
like a magic trick. You know what I mean? It is like, can you squirt? It's like, can you show me? Let's do it for a movie. And important to use it like in that sense, but I had actually never made the connection with the water and the release until I'm speaking to you, because you were connected to the water. So much so that it is such a healing space of like this water like coming like from you into you and like cleansing in this most beautiful, amazing way. And the cellular memory that you were talking about also kind of like releasing some of that. That is beautiful. And you have said that that has become part of your sexual journey in that kind of a sense. So it's something that now, are you able to implement like by yourself in your healing space, in your healing sexual space? Is that something, or was that like a once in time and then, how do I get that again type of thing?
So that's a great question. I in some ways was, for a moment I was like, oh, this is a unique experience. I'll probably never have this again. And then I said, I'm on my own. I'm gonna try, and then I did.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so this is telling me that it's in me.
Yeah.
And all that experience this is part of integration to some degree too. To know that something, someone, something, an experience or someone sometimes comes and opens the door with us, for us. But then it's, how do we walk through the door and make sense of it and embody it and reclaim it, or whatever it is that it needs to be. And so that was kind of my moment to say, let me see if it was just that experience or if it's in me.
This is such an important point to touch on, because I'm going to ask you this question, because it's so common that when we have an experience with somebody, we attach the experience to the person, and then we become like, this person is the only has the only key to that specific place of us. And it happens very young to us, obviously, because in my culture, and you grew up in LA, so you might have had a little bit more of an opened mind, but you did grow up with Mexican parents, so you have both probably. But like touching yourself or talking about sexuality was not encouraged, neither was expected, or exploring your own bodies, right? And so a lot of the first experiences that people have when it's sexually is with somebody, and then we then become obsessed with that boy, whenever, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, we're like, oh my God, he's the key to my pleasure, and nobody can ever give me pleasure like he can, and hence, he's the love of my life.
Right.
And so then we just like immediately just like clench into it, and we don't think that our pleasure is ours, and we don't think that power is within us in that sense. Now, I'm guessing that experience you had it later in your life. You didn't have it when you were a teenager. No. And so in this moment, did you feel that, okay, let me try it by myself? It's kind of a reclamation to your own sexuality in that sense. And did that affect how you were feeling about this person, for better or worse? And was there like a detachment that had to happen for you to own that space?
That's a great question. It was a process in the beginning, because again, like when we commune with somebody, and especially in such an intimate space, and especially with sex, there's an energy imprint that we take from the person. And especially as women, they always say like it takes a lot longer for us to get over someone when we're taking their energy in than a male, because their energy is external. And I do remember it took a little bit, but I was so determined that I needed to just find out if this was mine. And when it was able to happen, I was like, okay, thank you. Like I had to go into a state of gratitude. And that, I think, was what helped allow the enmeshment to, in some ways, like happen in a different way, not to be so enmeshed with each other, but that gave me the opportunity to just be more in my body and reclaim it, and to know that I had access to it whenever I wanted. since that moment, I've had access to it, and I thank, you know, all the experiences that I've had in my life, including all the bad ones, for this opportunity to come back more fully into my body. And that's why they say the rupture in our life, the pains in our life, oftentimes becomes the biggest gift that we can claim or reclaim.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that, because it is not, you know, sometimes we feel like detachment is like, I don't want to ever see you again, like let me block all the feelings away. And I think it's the opposite. I think it's like, let me be grateful for you in this moment. And like, but we don't have a lot of experiences like that, because either it's like all in or all out. And when people say all out, it's like, let me block myself out from you and whatever I feel from you, instead of like, yeah, it's painful. And something that I was sharing in that space is too, is like, listen, it's painful to have your heart open, but it's necessary. It's absolutely necessary. And so, yeah, there comes pain with the joy and pain with the pleasure and all the things, because you have to also know that we have to experience one to also experience the other. It's how this world is designed, you know, the light and the dark, and like unite, and you know, the moon and the sun, and all these things are for us to experience a polarity in the world, right? And we cannot just have one thing, because we're not going to be able to balance it. And so when we get to say goodbye to somebody or be grateful to an experience, or be like, let me see if, thank you for this experience, let me take my power back. And taking my power back, a lot of people again go back into like, fuck you, like I'm taking my power back, and you know, but it can be in a beautiful, loving way. It's like, thank you for this experience, you allow me to tap into a power that I inside of me knew I had, but I couldn't tap into it. And you were the vessel in the masculine that was able to hold space for me to explore that. And I will forever be grateful for you for that. But that doesn't mean that I have to stay with you forever. Neither does it have to be that we end now, or like doesn't have to mean anything except just letting what needs to happen, right? But just like the reclaiming doesn't have to come with the shutting down the people or the world, because a lot of the reclaiming that I hear out there is like, fuck you, and it's all about, and I'm like, it doesn't have to be that way. It can be out of love, and with more love it comes this more power to ourselves and more power to a reclaiming of who we are in that sense. And I'm saying love is never wasted, in my opinion, you know, because every time you give it, you know, you fill yourself up too, you know, and you also have a choice, you know, you can close down or you can open up. And that's a beautiful thing that you were able to, like, he was able to give you that beautiful gift, and then at the same time you were able to be like, let me now discover. And I think that is, I don't know how, but I think that needs to be implemented in sexual knowledge, since we're growing, since teenagers, you know, that how do we implement this of like, you have, and then you get to share with somebody else, but this person is not the key to the thing, you know. And it's so beautiful that you were able to do that.
Absolutely. And you know, you mentioned this the other day too, where you were like, this is the time where there is a reclamation for the feminine to really step in, because life comes through us. This is the time that we are in, where all of things in the world are shifting, and we're having to, and not only women, it's the feminine consciousness, right? Even in men, to say, hey, like there's this part of me, this emotional intelligence, this like central part in me that is needed to either get nurtured, that hadn't been nurtured because of the ruptures that we've experienced through the patriarchal like lens, but that we can get to a place where we engage with the world with more awareness and consciousness, and we're creating with the water of this world, and imprinting the water of this world with more consciousness, because we're constantly doing this, and to say, how can we be more open-hearted in everything that we do? Because at the end of the day, the cracking open is about love. And love doesn't mean all the good feelings and things like that. It means experiencing life in its polarity to its extreme. And, you know, I guess I wouldn't say I was conservative with sex in my perspective for a long time. And I don't even know how to define myself now. But I remember there was a moment when, going back to the mystery school before I went into my big bout of silence, there's one moment where I was moving through a lot of the trauma around sexual abuse, and I was working with the maternal lineage. And I remember I was doing some regressive breath work, and I was sitting under a full moon, and I was like, you know, I'm going to work with my mom and her lineage. And so I started doing this regression. And then I started remembering memories that I had blocked from like 10 years old and younger. Like no memories of childhood at that time, 10 and younger. And then these memories started to come up. I was like, oh, you know, there weren't, you know, big memories. It was just like simple memories that I was starting to remember. And then eventually I went into this like kind of tunnel. And then I was like in this, it felt like this orange, dark place. And that's when I was like, oh, I'm in my mom's womb. And this like wave of emotion came through. And I was like, I'm realizing right now that I'm feeling what she was feeling when I was inside of her at one moment. I was remembering that imprint in utero. Wow. And something told me through the experience, I was crying, it said, continue. And so I said, okay. So I continued the breath work, and I went through this other tunnel. And then I viscerally remember glimpses of both my parents having sex.
Oh my God, that's so wild.
And feeling their emotions individually. Like I could feel when my mom was feeling something and my dad was feeling something. Yeah. But I realized that in that moment, it was a moment they were conceiving me.
Wow.
And I was tuning into the imprint of where everything started.
Yeah.
Feeling my dad's like passion, my mom's resentment, then feeling the love and the lust between both of them, and then feeling this like, there was this flow of so many emotions. And that's when I was like, oh, I come from this.
Yeah.
So what does this mean? And this is before I got into the work with water. This is before I started learning about epigenetics. I guess the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I am just realizing the power of sexuality, and that's where I'm like, okay, I don't know how where I fit in terms of how I define myself in terms of sexual perspective. Yeah. But why I'm bringing this up is consciousness, awareness in our heart is really important when we're engaging in a sexual act.
Yes.
Because we have the power to create energetically and even physically, whether it's another being that comes through us. That's the first imprint of life.
Yeah.
One of the biggest ones. And then we have the ancestral familial stuff, right? But in that moment, it's like you were saying, what would it look like for us to have more empowerment in our sense of being in our heart? Yeah. To be able to engage in those moments and know that this is what we're imprinting into life.
Yes, that we're imprinting into life, and that we're imprinting into creation of our existence. Let's say you're not making kids,
right?
But that energy is creating something into your life and into the world. So it's like if you are having sex from a place of disconnection, there's a ripple effect in your life that there will be more disconnection, right? That there will be more disconnection in the world, because it's a ripple effect, and everything that you do, it ripples to, it's not just you, that's why I'm like, I want everybody to remember, because the world needs this. Absolutely. We need each other to like step it up right now, because the world needs it, because it needs that ripple effect to Absolutely. Be bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's like, let's say you're not having children and you're not thinking of like, let me make love to my husband because we're creating a kid, and that kid is going to have a remembrance inside of the body. But how about I'm having this sexual encounter with this person, and I just want to create this amazing, beautiful, open, beautiful experience. So he is left and I am left with so much love that it ripples around, right? And that then in my life, the things that I create, a book, a retreat, a this, a that, I created in that same energy, right? And not in the disconnection, right? Energy. That it is manifesting energy because it's creation energy. And so the way that we encounter a person is not just about the person. It's what we're doing with our lives in that space and what we want the world to receive. It's like you cannot be like, I want peace in the world and I want this and that in the world, and then just be beating your wife or, being mean to your sisters. Like, be what you want the world to be. Right. So if you want the world to be open and intentional and loving, then be that, create that, and create that with yourself. When you're making love to yourself,
right,
when you're making love to a person, it doesn't matter what person, because it is about the person, but it's also something about bigger than just the person, you know?
Yeah.
And you had experience too with like manifestation and creation with your sexuality. Let's talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, totally. So I went through another stage of my sexual development. I would say it was I got called to be celibate, and so I didn't have a time frame. I just knew it was something I needed to do and to focus my energy. But I had no idea what that would look like. And that journey took, a couple years. It was like 4.5 years of celibacy. And, during that time, it wasn't, the first couple years I was very inward oriented. And then there was a moment where I think it was like on the 3rd year mark where I was like, oh, I'm open. Like I want to explore with someone else. I'm ready to meet my person and share myself, because I felt more grounded and open in myself. But what ended up transpiring during that time was, I had been diligently working on, creating my life in a particular way that felt adaptable and fluid to my work and things that I love. And so I ended up setting a lot of intention towards an investment in a property in Mexico, and that happened during that time. And I didn't quite know, like it wasn't like a logical, planning. In some ways it was like things came because I was so focused on that energy, and I was able to make it happen.
I love that.
And that was such a test for me, that it's not just about, relationship to another person or people around you, but it's also the relationship, again, to life, and the one that we want to intimately engage with. And that for me was like confirmation to say, you're creating with life.
Yes.
And you can focus it in this way.
That's beautiful. Yes, to more creations with life in this type of amazing way. So the one last question that I want to ask you, that is as I ask everybody, is what is an orgasmic life to you?
It's the aha moments, the moments, right? Like even the deep ones when we don't. When we feel, in some ways, it's the polarity that we were talking about earlier. It's tuning into that place of, I wouldn't say pain, but it's like you tune into the empathy of like the pain of something, someone, of a hurt, of a disconnection, of when we go into those like deep places within us, when we like grieve and we're in it, like that for me feels orgasmic. But also just the levity of joy and pleasure, and sunsets, sunrises, and connections with loved ones, interesting conversations, moments that challenge you to grow. Like all of that feels like such an orgasmic, inviting like place, and that I want to experience more of the joy and the pleasure, because I also know that my tendency has been to like feel the grief and the pain, because that's an orientation. Also for women, I think, in the collective sphere. But I want to keep leaning into that levity of like other simple pleasures and basking in it and emanating it. Like just feeling my body more open to experiences, to just be like, okay, aquí voy.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Which just makes so much sense, because it's what you did in that And that space of like sexual healing, of being like, okay, aquí voy. It feels like that's what it was. Let's go. You know, it's like surrendering in a sense of the life magic and the life experiences of all of that. That is so beautiful. Rocío, please tell everybody where they can find you, how they can work with you, what are your recent offerings, because I want everybody to be able to find you and get you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Yeah, so I am on Instagram as water_healing. My website is www.rocionavarro.org. I do right now, my next offering isn't until December, which is a 3-day silent retreat in a beautiful desert in Hot Springs. Because I have a background with silence and retreats, I do a lot of retreats, but this one in particular is really transformative because we're not only using the power of like silence in the bones of the desert, but also working with the water and the memory that's there, and using somatic water therapy to like awaken what is there. And so that's one of my most beautiful experiences. So if anybody's interested, you can look there.
Oh, that's amazing. Please go follow. This was such a special, beautiful episode, and if it connected with you, leave a review, only if it's a good review. If not, you don't bother. And please share it with somebody that needs to hear this, because there's always like this, like, I think my sister would really benefit from this conversation, and please do it. This is the reason why we're doing this, or the reason why we're having this conversation, so more people can listen to this and they can get the ahas, orgasmic moments that they need in this life. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for coming, and we'll see each other in the next episode. The next episode is in Spanish, and I will see you in that space. Thank you so much.
Thank you.